What if the wisdom of Solomon didn't come from God, but from Lucifer himself? What if the wisest king in the Bible had learned his wisdom from Lucifer? The story told about Solomon is one of light, but there are hidden pages where that light is stained by darkness. In the silence between the verses, there is a pact, not written, but sealed. According to the Testament of Solomon, he didn't just pray, he commanded demons. He imprisoned them with a ring given by Michael, the warrior archangel, a seal that could summon and subdue. But there's something few dare to suggest. What if that power didn't come solely from heaven? What if fallen voices whispered into the king's ear, offering more than God ever allowed? In the darkness of the temple, under the sweet haze of incense, an ancient presence approached, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Forgotten texts speak of a banished prince of light among those spirits, one who already knew the secrets of creation, one whose name was spoken only in forbidden rites, Lucifer. If this is true, Solomon wasn't just the wisest man, he was the only one who touched both ends of the divine and lived. And what if the price of that wisdom still echoes today, without us even realizing it? The final night before the temple's construction would bring the proof, a visitor who would leave no visible marks, yet forever alter the king's destiny. What do you think about this? Leave your thoughts in the comments. In the dim light of the royal chamber, the air felt heavier. The flames of the oil lamps flickered, as if something unseen had entered. Solomon knew it wasn't the wind. It was a presence, a voice, not loud yet impossible to ignore, cut through the silence. Great is your wisdom, but it is incomplete. Do you wish to know what even the angels hide? He didn't ask who it was. Some part of him already knew. The sound was seductive, yet carried an ancient weight, a cold warmth, a light that wounded the eyes of the soul. The entity did not ask for worship. It offered knowledge, secrets of construction unknown even to the finest craftsmen, sacred geometry capable of turning stone into gateways. Apocryphal writings suggest that on this very night, Solomon learned the hidden language of spirits, a command that could summon invisible forces to raise the walls of the temple. But with the gift came a veiled condition. Everything built in my name will also be seen by me. And what if the temple of God was built under the silent gaze of Lucifer? Days later, the workers toiled, yet claimed they felt no weight in the stones. Some swore they had seen shadows assisting in the construction. If this spoke to you, like this video and hit the hyper button to help spread it. The temple walls now rose like stone giants. But that night, there were no masons, only the echo of solitary footsteps. Solomon walked with Michael's ring in his right hand. In the other, he held an ancient scroll whose letters seemed to shift in the torchlight. At the center of the courtyard, he traced symbols on the ground with gold dust and incense ash. It was not worship, it was summoning. One by one, faces began to emerge from the darkness. Some were twisted as if shaped by fire, others far too beautiful to be human. Among them, one figure stood apart. It gave no name, yet all others stepped back when its light burned the shadows. The air carried a scent between myrrh and lightning. I see you have the seal, but do you also have the courage, it said. The pact was not sealed in blood, but in forbidden words, promises that no secret would be withheld from him, as long as he accepted that truth was not heaven's monopoly. Oral traditions claim that on that night, Solomon learned the names and purposes of 72 spirits, each with unique powers and knowledge. All would answer to the ring, all except the one who ruled over them. And what if the true master was never on the list, because he was already walking beside the king? When the torches extinguished on their own, the temple felt more alive than dead. And in the darkness, something whispered, "Now your true work begins. Subscribe." What comes next is even darker. What if the glory of Israel had been bought with coins from the depths of hell? Israel's wealth was rising like never before. Gold flowed freely. Trade routes expanded. No enemy dared to attack. But none of this was mere strategy. In the throne room, Solomon made decisions alone, or so it seemed. For at his side, invisible to mortal eyes, a presence whispered secrets of diplomacy and war. Neighboring kings came to offer tribute. unaware that some of these alliances were woven by intelligences not of this world. Occult writings claim that certain treaties were signed on astrally perfect, to dates chosen to channel power to the throne, not to the people. And as the temple's construction advanced, rumors spread. Workers claimed to see columns move on their own. Servants swore they heard choirs in strange tongues at nightfall. If peace and prosperity are the fruits of a dark pact, is it still peace? One night before dawn, Solomon was awakened by a messenger who had not knocked at the door. He had simply appeared, and what he brought was not gold, but a warning. Share this with someone who needs to see what's been hidden. What if the glory of Israel had been bought with coins from the depths of hell? Israel's wealth was rising like never before. Gold flowed freely. Trade routes expanded. No enemy dared to attack. But none of this was mere strategy. In the throne room, Solomon made decisions alone, or so it seemed. For at his side, invisible to mortal eyes, a presence whispered secrets of diplomacy and war. Neighboring kings came to offer tribute, unaware that some of these alliances were woven by intelligences not of this world. Occult writings claim that certain treaties were signed on astrally perfect, to dates chosen to channel power to the throne, not to the people. And as the temple's construction advanced, rumors spread. Workers claimed to see columns move on their own. Servants swore they heard choirs in strange tongues at nightfall. If peace and prosperity are the fruits of a dark pact, is it still peace? One night before dawn, Solomon was awakened by a messenger who had not knocked at the door. He had simply appeared, and what he brought was not gold, but a warning. Share this with someone who needs to see what's been hidden. What if the master who gave you power came back to take it away? The temple was complete. Its columns gleamed under the sun. The priests sang their hymns. But that night, no song could drown out the sound of footsteps no one could see. Lucifer had returned, not with promises, but with the posture of one who had come to claim what was his. The gold and the glory were only the advance payment. The time of harvest has come. Solomon tried to argue, reminding him of the ring and the authority he had received. But the archangel who had given him the seal remained silent. Some apocryphal Coptic manuscripts suggest that Solomon's pact was not merely personal. Every stone of the temple, every jewel of the throne, every military victory was energetically bound to the agreement. And the payment would not come from him alone, but from his people. The shadows of the columns seemed longer that night. And for a moment, the king himself felt he no longer ruled. If a pact is collective, who truly pays the price? Lucifer smiled and said, I'm not going to take what is yours. I'm going to take what keeps you standing. Like this, if any part of this made you uneasy. What if the power that lifts you is also the one that brings you down? The walls of Jerusalem still stood strong, but in the heart of the kingdom, shadows had begun to seep in. Unexplained disputes arose among the counselors. Harvests that were once abundant began to wither. Illness spread in silence. The people murmured, unaware of the true cause. But Solomon felt day after day his authority slipping through his fingers. Forgotten writings speak of an invisible harvest, a spiritual debt that drains not gold, but trust, health, and hope. Lucifer didn't need to strike directly. His collection was slow, cruel, and unseen. If the price of the pact was the kingdom's very balance, how long before total collapse? In the dim light of the temple, a voice whispered to Solomon, the light you seek may be the end you fear. Subscribe. The truth doesn't stop here. Become a member to watch videos early. Choose future topics and access exclusive content. What if the greatest battle wasn't against enemies, but against yourself? Solomon, the wisest man in the world, sat alone in the throne room. The torches flickered as if an invisible wind carried whispers only he could hear. The gold that once reflected glory now seemed cold, almost dark. The weight of the crown had become heavier than any war fought. In sleepless nights he wondered, was the wisdom I received truly a gift from God, or a seed planted to destroy me? And the ring that grants me authority over demons, is it my greatest weapon or my most subtle prison? His faith, once solid as stone, began to crack. And in the silence of the temple, where answers once echoed, now only a suffocating void remained. Every prayer seemed to rise less and less, as if the heavens were closed. Apocryphal writings and forgotten traditions say every great king faces three enemies: the world, others, and himself. And doubt is like a shadow that never leaves the light, as old as the cosmos itself. Solomon realized that in trying to control spiritual forces, he was beginning to lose control of himself. The balance between light and darkness was a silver thread, too fragile for any man to hold for long. And what if the simple act of choosing a side was actually the sentence that would destroy everything? His mind swung like a pendulum. If I turn away from the light, I fall into darkness. If I flee the darkness, I might lose understanding of the light. What if I need both to rule? With each dawn, he felt he no longer ruled Israel, but an invisible battlefield within himself. The ring on his finger seemed to pulse, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Sometimes he swore he heard a deep, almost dragging voice say, "You don't have to choose. You can have both." But he knew alliances with darkness always come with a price. And some pacts aren't undone, even with regret. On a moonless night, a vision engulfed him. Jerusalem in flames, and from the ashes, an even grander temple rising. Was it destruction or rebirth? The omen was clear, but the choice, still not. Which of the two would be his legacy? Tag someone brave enough to watch until the end. What if the real enemy wasn't the other, but the abyss within ourselves? Solomon was on the brink of collapse. The kingdom, once mighty, wavered like a fortress surrounded by unseen storms. Messengers brought troubling news, borders in conflict, tribes murmuring against the king, priests divided. But none of that was as threatening as what was unfolding inside him. His soul, split in two, seemed to teeter toward a bottomless void. The silence of the temple now weighed heavier than 1,000 war cries. And the voices that once guided him, sometimes gentle as the wind, other times firm as thunder, had become a chaotic chorus. Angels and demons, all vying not just for his throne, but for his very essence. The ring on his finger burned. At times, he felt he wasn't wearing it, but that the ring was wearing him. And when he tried to pray, strange images appeared. A throne made of black flames, and himself seated upon it. Rare manuscripts kept away from common eyes speak of a final ritual Solomon performed in secret. It wasn't a battle against an external entity, but a direct confrontation with the darkest reflection of himself. A test that would separate the earthly king from the spiritual king, and decide whether Israel would be remembered as a kingdom of light or darkness. They say this ritual could only be done when faith and doubt were in perfect balance. A fragile, almost impossible moment when a man's soul becomes a mirror of the universe itself. But there was a price. To cross the threshold, one had to accept that perhaps balance was just an illusion. What if the scale never truly existed? What if it was all just a choice between two abysses? Solomon wondered, if I surrender to the light, will I have the strength to keep the kingdom? If I embrace the darkness, can I keep my soul? The paradox consumed him. It was like holding two sharp swords by the blades. Whichever choice he made, it would bleed. On the appointed night, only a few trusted men were summoned. They formed a circle around the king, who knelt at the center with the ring in hand. The walls of the hall were covered with symbols etched in fire, and a thick, almost solid atmosphere took hold of the air. If balance is a lie, he thought, perhaps the only truth is the leap into the unknown. But which darkness? When the ritual began, a blinding light exploded in the hall, dazzling everyone present. The sound of something ancient and powerful echoed, as if time itself held its breath. And then silence. A silence so deep it seemed to swallow the sound of the heart. No one dared to open their eyes. If this disturbed you, that was the point. Comment below. What if the truth they hid from us is the only light we truly need to fear? The silence that followed the last flicker of light wasn't just an absence of sound. It was a breathing void. The temple, once alive with chants and whispers, had become a petrified echo, a place where even the air seemed too heavy to move. Solomon stood in the center of the stone circle, the gold of his crown reflecting a glow that came from no flame. His eyes, once full of answers, now wandered between the infinite sky and the bottomless depth of the abyss. The Pact was not a myth. It was not a legend. It was the invisible thread stitching light and darkness, order and chaos, birth and death together. It wasn't a victory of one over the other, but an inevitable coexistence. He understood too late. Wisdom is not the power to rule, but the courage to bear the weight of choices. The one who touches darkness must carry its marks forever, and the one who seeks the light without knowing the shadows remains blind. Hidden texts, survivors of centuries of persecution, whispered in fading letters. There is no light born without shadow, nor shadow that does not carry a spark of light. Then Solomon felt the whisper. It was neither human voice nor angelic song. It was something between sound and thought, something that asked no permission to enter. The Pact was not sealed in the past. It is sealed with every breath, every act, every choice. And in that moment the king saw. He saw that the true battlefield was not the temple, nor the altars, nor the heavenly armies. It was the human mind. It was the heart that hesitates between revenge and forgiveness, between ego and sacrifice, between the blinding light and the protective darkness. The temple remained silent, but inside it, the roar of revelations echoed like silent thunder. Solomon didn't know if what he had received was a blessing or a curse. Maybe it was both. But what about us? If the Pact still lives, if every decision renews the veil between light and darkness, why do we keep closing our eyes, waiting for others to choose for us? Perhaps the greatest lie we were told is that there is only one side to fear. The silence after the last light is not emptiness. It is an invitation. The coin lies before you. Which face will you dare to face? What if all of this is real? Write your truth below.